Our first guest from Bank to the Future. He's written a book called Bank to the Future as well. And his website is BnkToTheFuture.com, minus the A in bank. His name is Simon Dixon. He's the co-founder and CEO of Bank to the Future.
It's recommended that the book be read at 88.8 miles an hour. So
exactly. And if you start seeing a bunch of electrical activity around you, don't be scared. You're just keep being catapulted into the future of banking. Co-founder and CEO of Bank to the Future, author of the book Bank to the Future, as I mentioned, co-founder and fund manager of Bitcoin Capital. He's an ex-director of the UK Digital Currency Association and UK Crowdfunding Association, both of which come into play in what we're about to discuss, who regularly speaks on the future of finance to governments, businesses, investors, and financial institutions. An ex-investment banker that left the corporate world in 2006 to launch his first business, angel funded by billionaire Peter Hargreaves, and an advocate of crowdfunding since raising finance for Bank to the Future through equity crowdfunding on its own platform. You will find Simon regularly quoted in appearing in much of the major press and media, including BBC, the Financial Times, CNBC, Reuters, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, and The Crypto Show, to mention a few. And that's in order of increasing prominence right there, in case you weren't aware. Well, Simon Dixon, welcome to The Crypto Show.
Thanks for having me. That was a well-scripted introduction.
Well, thank you, because you created that script off of your website and the About Us page, so we appreciate that. Tell us, before we get to Bank to the Future, and I have to say, in the little prep work I've done over the past couple of days, it's a pretty fascinating idea, and I think just sort of the next step in all of the new technologies that are coming out, and we'll get into that. But how did you go from the world of traditional investment banking to becoming a Bitcoin advocate? Well, tell us about that transition.
Okay, well, yeah, I left the world of investment banking in 2006. I'd like to say I timed it perfectly because I was forecasting a crash in the markets, but that wasn't the real reason. I was a little bit bored in my job, really. I was working as a trader, which was very exciting to begin with. But after a couple of years of trading the markets and just trying to scalp your piece of profit for the bank out of the markets, it starts to become a little bit soulless and less purposeful. So I switched into the world of corporate finance, and that was helping companies float on the London Stock Exchange, which is really good business education and finding out how the world of investment banking works. But I was always more passionate about having a bigger impact, and the more I looked into the banking system, I started to realize that what I learned in my economics and what I was taught at university is actually completely different to how the banking system works. And we seem to be educating a nation of minions that have a very bad understanding of banking and economics. And
I couldn't agree with that more, by the way. Sorry to interrupt, but that is so true. It's almost as if our education systems gear people to understand money and finance and banking as little as possible. In my opinion, it's probably on purpose. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, that's right. And one small technical detail that I was taught in economics made up an obsession that led me to where I am today, and that was that they taught me that a bank was an intermediary between a borrower and a lender, and that's not actually the case. The bank is actually they do three very harmful things, which we can go into a bit later, which led me to want to quit my job and write the first draft of the book Bank to the Future, which was all about how to drive some more sustainability in our economy through finance. I believe that many of the problems we suffer in our world are actually an indirect or direct result of our financial system. And so I became an absolute finance banking geek that knows things about banking that no one else is interested in. It was in that path that around about 2010, someone contacted me and told me about Bitcoin. And Bitcoin happened to just solve those three problems, which we can discuss later about banking. And that kind of led me on a path to believing actually the major changes in the future of finance are not going to come top down from government. There actually is hope that we can do it bottom up from entrepreneurs, investors, and ever since then, I've been involved in giving my contribution through my connections and understanding of investors and how to raise finance, to channel all that to the alternative finance sector and get as many people interested in investing in this sector, making innovation in this sector so that we can have some bottom-up changes so that we don't have to sit back and feel useless waiting for a government to change our corrupt banking system.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm glad that you said that in the way you did. There's no hope in waiting for the government to change. One, it's the nature of states to accumulate more power and help out connected cronies at the expense of everyone else. And two, the government is so heavily in bed with large corporations in general, but especially the big banks, that there's just really no hope of separating that marriage. And you're right, it needs to be a bottom-up approach, and things like Bitcoin and crowdfunding, investing, and the like are, really the hope for the future. And I also want to add that, it used to be somewhat historically that a lot of Americans, for instance, could own traditional investments, but increasingly there's a divide between those who can invest, whether in 401ks or Roth IRAs or mutual funds, or more directly in stocks and bonds. Increasingly, people are unable to do that through the traditional financial sector, and that's why your company is such a marvel. We'll talk about that. Well, we got about 3 minutes left till break. Tell us a little bit more about your book, Bank to the Future, and then we'll hop into the company.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, Bank to the Future was a book I wrote. It's in its third draft now in Mandarin and English. It was discussing the top-down reforms that need to happen in banking, three major points, which we'll go on after maybe. And then walking through what the future of finance looks like. And so we take it's a fiction and non-fiction, and we take a time-traveling journey, reform all the bits of banking that are unsustainable, and then look at the future of our world when you have a sustainable financial system.
I love that. So you said elements of fiction and elements of nonfiction?
Yeah, so the time traveling element is obviously the fiction bit, but the bits awesome. The bits we actually solve are actually real problems with our financial system today.
That sounds pretty awesome. I like books that try to educate people through fiction, whether it's comedic or more sort of sci-fi, as in this case, because I think it's more effective than having simply a dry tome on what can sometimes be arcane or obscure subject matters. So that's really awesome. Well, we've got about a minute and a half till break. Let's save till the other side, I guess, discussion of hopping into Bank to the Future, but we'll immediately get into Bank to the Future and what it is on the other side. And I've already alluded to it to some degree. And like I said, it's sort of a simple idea, but brilliant. But in the minute we have left, I wanted to ask you too. You said Bitcoin solved these financial evils for you, and we'll discuss that after we get into Bank to the Future. But were you at all skeptical of Bitcoin at first?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think you'd be crazy not to be skeptical to begin with. Mm-hmm. But as you unpeel the onion layers, you start to realize that this is actually the application that can do to finance what the internet did to information. And the beauty of it is that the internet, unfortunately, ended up controlled and censored, but it still had an amazing impact. But Bitcoin is not owned by anyone and decentralized, so you can maintain the integrity of it as this goes through. And I believe that Bitcoin is the most significant application of the internet.
I couldn't agree more. Sorry to interrupt. Simon Dixon of Bank to the Future. We'll be right back here on the Crypto Show, guys. Stay tuned.
In Acapulco, 2016, February 19th through the 21st, with workshops starting February 17th. This is not just the run-of-the-mill anarcho-capitalist conference. It's also the best Bitcoin conference around, with names like Roger Ver, Jeffrey Tucker, Trace Mayer, Tone Vase, The Crypto Show, and more to be announced in the coming weeks. We all know the best part of these conferences don't happen at the speaker's podium. It's the after parties that make it fun. And what better place than on the beach in Acapulco to connect with like minds? Go to anarchapulco.com and use the coupon code CRYPTO to save 10%. Or just click through from thecryptoshow.com. That's coupon code CRYPTO.
This is what happens when you call the cops. Say what? This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot. Pow. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops.
If you're wondering what happens when you call the cops, well, don't do it. Don't bother. It's probably nothing good that you'll find out. That's, of course, by Rob Hustle. This is what happens when you call the cops. RobHustle.com. Check out his sequel to that song, Good Cops.
Unless you just don't like your dog anymore. But.
Yeah, I mean, if you want the police to shoot your dog, go ahead and call them. Or perhaps your children or, anyone else in your neighborhood or yourself. But anyway, we're off topic. We are, of course, speaking to Simon Dixon of Bank to the Future. You can check it out at BnkToTheFuture.com. All one word. There is no letter A in bank. Just keep that in mind when you look for it. And Simon, we were talking about your background and how you came into Bitcoin, and you had mentioned that Bitcoin essentially solves at least three evils or problems that are kind of inherent to our existing financial system. I guess let's go ahead and get into that. Explain what that is and why, and then we can get into Bank to the Future and how Bank to the Future may additionally solve some of those problems.
Okay, yeah. So firstly, it's worth noticing that nothing that we've done since the financial crisis is going to solve the financial crisis. And the reason is because, if you don't want to read the book, I'll give you the overview right now, which is there's three problems in banking. The first is that when you deposit your money with a bank, the bank actually becomes the legal owner of your money. So at point of you putting your wages in your bank account, it's no longer your money. They just decide whether they want to give it to you or not. And so the people in Cyprus actually saw what it's actually like when the banks actually take the deposits that they own and they call it a bail-in and they confiscated the money to save the bank. So that's the first problem. Now, with Bitcoin, you own your own money. You store it in your phone, you store it in your hard drive, you store it in a cold wallet, but that money is yours. And there's no, you haven't given up legal entitlement of that money unless you deposit it in a bank-like wallet.
You can even hang it on the wall as artwork if you want.
You can, yeah. And there's some interesting websites doing that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that when the bank becomes the legal owner of your money, they can actually spend it as they wish. So, what tends to happen is that if you take a typical bank in a Western country, they spend 40% of your money on mortgages, issuing mortgage loans, which the effect is that you have a negative impact on the allocation of assets within the economy. Sorry if I get a bit geeky, but I tend to just slap me around the face.
No, we have plenty of geeks on the show. Go ahead.
Okay. And what that does is it reallocates money towards property. And then what you have is the largest vehicle or asset for inequality has become property, because essentially banks are taking 40% of everybody's money and using it to issue loans, because if the mortgage goes wrong, they can repossess the property. If it goes right, they make a ton of money out of it. And so it's become a vehicle in the asset class for banks to allocate your money, and therefore prices continually rise, which crowds out people from being able to get on the property market and creates a big reallocation of assets from people that aren't on the ladder to those who are already on the ladder, which is a big problem. The other 40% is financial speculation, and then only about 5 to 10% of people's money is used to create jobs and invest in small to medium-sized businesses and actually do something that stimulates or helps an economy. Now with Bitcoin, it's peer-to-peer. You send the money as you wish. There's no one that can get in the way of that process. It's neutral money. It doesn't care what your sexuality is, what your racial, what race you are, whether you're using it for crime or not for crime, which has an impact, on why people are giving it so much attention. It is neutral money that can be sent from person to person, and therefore you can transport around the world any amount of value to anywhere you want. So it reflects the value of its users as opposed to the value of banks and where they allocate credit. That's the second one. And the third one, the final problem, is even more geeky, but it's a monetary policy issue. People talk about governments printing money as a big problem. It's not actually a major problem because only 3% of our money is created by a government through a central bank. 97% of every penny is created by a private bank at point of issuing a loan. So what that means in non-geeky terms is that when you take out a mortgage, the bank doesn't actually have that money. They just decide to create that money at point of issuing a loan. And that's actually 97% of every money. So if you log into your online banking right now and you look at your balance, and if you have a positive balance, it means that it coincides with somebody else being in debt, because in order for that money to exist, somebody else had to take on a loan, because every single penny in your online banking within the banking system that falls outside of cash was created at point of issuing a loan. And the effect of that is that you continually need to get governments into deeper debt, corporates into deeper debt, and individuals into deeper debt. And so, when you look at a business cycle, it's simply loads of people taking on debt and then people extinguishing debt in a downside. So it means that you have a debt dependency to have an economy, which is why our governments can never fix the problems, and all they do is allow for more debt.
And I just want to add to it a more fundamental level, and you basically already alluded to it. It's not just the banks creating debt at the consumer level when you take out a loan and creating credit out of thin air. It's the Federal Reserve creating money out of thin air. And the only way it does that is by buying treasury bonds, government securities, and, of course, more recently with QE, mortgage-backed securities. So the only way for this credit pyramid scheme essentially to keep going, like you said, is to increasingly accumulate more debt. It's a very perverse system.
Yeah, so very briefly for those that are interested in money, at the moment there's 4 forms of money. There's cash. That's created by a central bank when they print off money. The way that it works is if you take, let's use a $10 note. A $10 note costs about 3 cents to print, and then they sell it to a bank in order to put it in an ATM. And that $9.97 profit margin is added to tax revenue, and it's a form of government revenue called seigniorage. And that's money that, if you believe governments are spending money in the correct way, benefits society. If you don't believe that they're spending it in the correct way, then benefits the government. But that's government-created money. The second form of money is bank-created money, which is 97% of it, which is at point of loan. They simultaneously create an asset and a liability. And if you repay the loan, money disappears from the economy. If you take out the loan, the money supply increases. The third form came from the financial crisis, which is quantitative easing. And essentially that's the central banks buying these products called bonds in the market. And what the effect of that has been is it's redistributed all of a massive chunk of money to the large corporate sector. And what the large corporate sector have done with that money is they've used it to buy back their stock, which has created a stock market bubble and simultaneously a bond market bubble, which props up the economy a little bit longer, but it over leverages everything and creates a big problem. And the final form of money came out of the invention of Bitcoin, which is a cryptocurrency. So if you look at those forms of money, cash, the government benefits from. The 97% of money, the money that's created at a bank, the bank benefits from. quantitative easing just benefits the large corporates. But what Bitcoin did is it created a new form of money which can be created by people doing these geeky technical process of verifying transactions. But the monetary policy is completely fixed, and therefore I know what the money supply of Bitcoin will be in 36.58362 years because it's regulated by maths and code. And it's really geeky. It's hard for people to understand, but it was just an ingenious way of allowing users to benefit from the profits of money creation rather than government, central banks, and large corporates. But if they want to participate in it, they can, and that's what we're seeing at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you distinguish Bitcoin from all the other forms of money. I mean, it's true, but it is an important, I think, thing to keep in mind. And it is the great democratizing currency, and not democracy in the political sense, but in the broader market sense of empowering individuals and ultimately robbing big banks and big corporations of their money cartel that the government enforces. And it's really one of the key technologies, obviously, like you mentioned, to come around, certainly since the internet itself. But we're coming to break, and definitely when we get back, we're going to get straight into Bank to the Future. It's pretty exciting stuff. We're talking with Simon Dixon, the CEO and co-founder of Bank to the Future. So stay tuned here on the Crypto Show, guys, because we'll be right back, and it's always an interesting show.
Our sponsors, as always, Brave New Books, 1904 Guadalupe, for all your suppressed information and premium health food products, such as Tangy Tangerine and all of the longevity line, as well as Burke Superfood. Also, Hill Country Home Improvements and Logos Radio Network, without whom this show would not be possible. If you're listening in on one of the podcasts available at logosradionetwork.com, Let's Talk Bitcoin, LRN.FM, or Bitcoin Talk Radio, those are brought to you by ruleoflaw.com. So if you have legal issues or you just want to know what your lawyer should be doing, check out ruleoflawradio.com. If you're listening to one of the podcast versions, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook so you'll know who our next guests are. That way you can participate live through our call-in number at 512-646-1984 on Wednesdays and Sunday nights, 8 to 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. All of our sponsors have links or discounts at thecryptoshow.com, so just click through from there to find the best deals and to keep up with upcoming events.
Free Speech Radio, logosradionetwork.com.
What's your plan for tomorrow? Are you a leader or will you follow? Are you a fighter or will you cower? It's our time, take back the power. What's your plan for tomorrow? Are you a leader or will you follow?
All right, guys, welcome back to the Crypto Show here on Logos Radio Network, brought to you as always by Brave New Books and Hill Country Home Improvements. And real quick, before we get back to our guest, Simon Dixon, the co-founder and CEO of Bank to the Future, I do want to mention something I neglected to do so in the first segment, which is that tonight is not Back to the Future, Weird Wednesday at Brave New Books with JCTV. There's going to be hip-hop artists, rap artists, jazz artists, some comedians. It's every other Wednesday. Tonight it's happening from 8:30 to 11:30. It won't happen again until January 20th, however, a little respite for the holidays. So keep that in mind. And if you forget or need any updates, check out bravenewbookstore.com. Don't forget to check out the bitcoinbookstore.com as well for all your 50-plus Bitcoin title needs. Anyway, so we spent the last segment with Simon giving us an excellent and very clear rundown of basically what banking is, what money is, how it's all created, and how the current system works. And of course, Bitcoin is an amazing alternative to that. In that it isn't created out of nothing. There is an ultimate limit to the number that can be created, and it's peer-to-peer. It doesn't require an intermediary institution like a bank, and so it's definitely going to revolutionize banking and finance. Well, something else that looks like it might revolutionize banking and finance is Bank to the Future. Well, Simon, let's dive into that. Tell us about Bank to the Future.
So Bank to the Future is a 4-year love child of mine, which took 3 years in regulations. And
Oh no!
yeah, so we launched it earlier this year in the form that we want it to be in.
And how
and it's
fitting,
all-
sorry, 2015, that was very fitting to launch it, sorry.
Yeah, for the year of the future and back.
Back to the
I can't
Future.
say Back to the Future anymore. Mike.
And
it
soon
sounds
no one
great.
else will be able to say Back to the Future. They'll only be able to say Bank to the Future.
I hope so. So we're an online investment platform. We specialize just in fintech and financial innovation. We wanted to create a safe place for businesses that are disrupting the traditional banking and finance sector to be able to raise finance from a niche, rabid community of 16,000 professional investors that we currently have. And we allow investors to essentially, in a really, I should disclaim, this is real high risk, high return investing. But if Bitcoin and the alternative finance sector gets as big as I personally believe it will be, and we personally believe it will be, then we've created a platform whereby people can invest in the sector and get exposure to the hottest startups, funds in the sector. And so far this year, we've had $45 million invested in the sector, which I see as
Wow.
45 million that is, going to be used to build what I think will be the alternative to finance in the future. So, we do things like we've got funds that pay investors in Bitcoin. We run a fund called Bitcoin Capital with a gentleman called Max Kaiser.
Oh, yeah, Max Cesar, cool.
Yeah, so Max and myself run a fund called Bitcoin Capital where we invest in what we think are the hottest startups in the Bitcoin sector and pay investors all using Bitcoin and the blockchain to audit it and that type of stuff. And we've had, most of the major funding rounds in this sector. People have been able to get exposure to them through our platform. So we've had some really interesting companies. So what we realized was this, is, after writing the book Bank to the Future, I saw, wow, Bitcoin is here. There's such a big impact that can be had on banking and finance. We'd like to be involved in all of it because there's so many exciting things and applications that can be made. So we created an online investment platform where we could invest in all of the interesting stuff that's coming, and then also have other people co-invest with us. And so, because I guess I was just so interested in, we couldn't make all the changes ourselves, but if we could invest and fund all the businesses that were making all the changes in each individual area, then we think we can have a big impact there. And that's what we've done.
Yeah, you get to be the people who help the movers and shakers transform the world of Bitcoin and financial innovation in the financial system. I think that's awesome. Well, and so, and just to clarify, it is a crowdfunding platform. I mean, much like, say Indiegogo or what's the other one? Well, any of the crowdfunding platforms, but for Kickstarter, thank you. And so tell us, how does that work? Is there a minimum investment? And I guess get into a little bit more of the mechanics of signing up and going through the process of investing.
Yeah, so it's actually not quite a crowdfunding platform. So my definition of crowdfunding would be that anyone can invest. As we do investment opportunities, we have to comply with international financial regulations, and international financial regulations don't allow anyone to invest. At the moment, there's a big switch that's happening all around the world, but it's going to take 10 years to come through fully on a global scale. So at the moment, we're open to people have to qualify to invest, and they have to be a certain type of person to be able to do it. Once things change, we'll update our who can actually become an investor. But the minimum investment tends to be about $1,000. So Kickstarter and Indiegogo is democratizing investing. Crowdfunding, on an individual scale, is really having a big impact. We play in a slightly different sector in the the people that meet a certain criteria are able to invest in and get exposure to this asset class. I'd love to do more democratizing effects in the future, but international financial regulations don't permit it yet.
Right, and I guess that was a slight misunderstanding on my part, but you're right. But at least y'all are tending towards that. Insofar as you're allowed to by law, y'all are pushing in that direction. I think that's awesome. And I like how if you go to the site, there's a section for investments that you can look for, and there's a section for basically applying to get your business financed. So that's really neat from both ends of it. And then they've got stats on the amount of money invested, as he said, 45 million thus far. That's pretty impressive for something that's only been around since earlier this year. Dividends paid, number of professional investors, looks like over 16,000, and the amount of Bitcoin invested as well. And there's also a little perk for signing up to get your investments going. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I mean, we've been involved in experimenting with different things. So one of the things that Bitcoin produced was, because the code is open source, anyone can clone their own coin, and that's a good thing, and that's done some amazing things, but also created lots of real scammy coins that you need to be aware of. But we experimented in the space, and Max Kaiser, who we've done a bit of work with, he created a coin called Startcoin, which was a coin for crowdfunding.
StartJoin.
Yes, so StartJoin is his crowdfunding platform, which, if you're early stage and you're looking to take on loads of people that can contribute, £1 or $1 or something, then that's the place that's doing that. And then what we tend to find is that people raise finance through StartJoin to get started. And then once they make progress and they're ready for investors, then we can put them on Bank to the Future. But we have a little perk where we give everyone 100 free start coins, which fluctuates in value every day. It's a very volatile, crazy coin. And if they qualify to invest, then they can use it to make their first investment for free, and we'll pay for it.
Well, that's a pretty neat little perk. And that's the beauty of the marketplace, is that not only do companies like Bank to the Future come around to take us to the next level of innovations in the financial world like Bitcoin, but they have an incentive to give you an incentive to get involved, to sign up and invest. And that's pretty awesome. If you're interested, of course, go to BnkToTheFuture.com. All one word, BnkToTheFuture.com. No letter A in bank. Keep that in mind. That's really awesome. Well, we got about
that. By the way, is that by the way will probably be the title of my next book. I'll release it here exclusively. I've never told anyone this, but the next book will probably be "The Bank Stole My A."
That is awesome. That's a great title. Two, that just makes me think of so many things about what might have happened in the background of that. That's pretty fascinating. Well, we're coming to break. Is that something you maybe at all want to get into on the other side, or should we save that for next time you're on the show, closer to the release of the book?
Yeah, we're good. I don't know what it's about yet. I just know the title.
I like that. Well, that's great. That means we'll be able to have him back on to discuss that book. We've got another segment with Simon Dixon, co-founder and CEO of Bank to the Future. Stay tuned here on the
Help support the Crypto Show and save yourself some dough with Purse.io. Hey, that rhymes. But seriously, folks, go to BnkToTheFuture.com, click on the banner ad for Purse.io, and sign up today to start saving 20% and more on products at Amazon.com. Plus, check out our perks and coupons page for other great deals like 10% off for Anarchapulco. Use coupon code CRYPTO. Not to mention dozens of great deals on Bitcoin swag and apparel on our Free Ross page. All proceeds going to freeross.org. So go check out thecryptoshow.com today. Don't worry, folks. If you missed the latest episodes of The Crypto Show, you can always catch the replays on Tuesdays and Fridays on BitcoinTalkRadio.com, as well as the latest news in the Bitcoin space. That's BitcoinTalkRadio.com, or just find them on the TuneIn app.
chip in my wife. I don't want a chip in my babies. Stay out of our lives. Don't want no shackles. Don't want no shackles on me. I sit down with Big Brother. Shame on that Big Brother trying to track and trace me and all you and tag the animals and tag everything on earth. I sat down with Big Brother. Down with Big Brother. Down with Big Brother.
Down with Big Brother. Oh, but wait, I'm sorry, that's sexist. I should say down with Big Sister as well. Forgive me for anyone I might have offended there. Welcome back, guys, to the Crypto Show.
Why are you hating on Janet?
Janet Reno?
Yellen.
No. Janet Yellen, that's right. I always think Janet Reno. I don't know why. I think because when I was growing up, SNL would make fun of her and Will Ferrell would play her. And it was just hilarious. Anyway, welcome back to the Crypto Show, guys, here on Logos Radio Network. Brought to you as always by Brave New Books and Hill Country Home Improvements. Check out bravenewbookstore.com and thebitcoinbookstore.com. Also check out BnkToTheFuture.com minus the letter A from bank. And we have the co-founder and CEO of Bank to the Future, Simon Dixon, here with us. And real quick, Simon, just for our listeners who may just be tuning in and just for a quick overview, just explain BnkToTheFuture.com in brief, and then also tell us what are some of your current popular pitches or success stories?
eCoin.
So BnkToTheFuture.com is an online investment platform that allows investors to invest in fintech and financial innovation investment opportunities. So we have many of the largest Bitcoin companies that do funding rounds through us, and our investors can invest in them. And we have lots of different products, so you just got to browse through them. Some of the products that the investments that we've been investing in, and we tend to the things that we put up on the platform, the things we would invest in ourselves. So we don't have loads and loads of opportunities. We've got a pretty stringent due diligence process.
But I like that. That means your interests are aligned with your investors too. So that's a really good thing, I think.
That's right. And also because we're a niche platform, we don't just, many platforms just take any type of business. We just take fintech. And it's because we've got the expertise to know what the scams are, what the bad things are, what the good things are. And even if an investment's not really working, we might be able to do something to help them to merge with another company or something, So we're niche to the sector and we're experts in the sector. So we don't have any plans on going out of the sector.
I was going to ask you real quick, and I know we're on another question, but you made me think of something. You mentioned how you work to make sure that it's not like a fly-by-night business that you're investing in. What are your safeguards for that? Just the fact that you're also investing and y'all do the due diligence for the investor?
Well, yeah, the first thing to say is that the companies on our platform, they some of them will go bust. This is high-risk investing.
Of course.
If you're investing in this sector, it's a long-term investment, and more of them are meant to go bust than the ones that don't. But hopefully the ones that don't go bust are going to go on to become as big as the next Facebook and Google is the idea when you're investing in high-risk investments like this. But, we put them through and anything they say on the platform, we legally verify that it's factual and accurate. And if they can't prove it, then we don't let them say it on the platform. We go through all the legal work. We make investments ourselves. Many of the times they've secured themselves a professional investor externally, and we co-invest alongside them. And so it's been through a real stringent due diligence process. There's companies out there which are providing anyone the opportunity to raise finance, which I think is a noble cause in itself. But this particular platform is about once you've reached a certain stage and you've passed the due diligence, and we open it up to our investors. So different missions, different goals, but it takes about a month or so to go through that to get listed on our platform. And unfortunately, I'd love but the number of applications relative to who gets on is less than 5%.
Well, and that's like you said, it's a niche investing platform. It's obviously not for everybody for a variety of reasons, but for those for whom it is appropriate, I think that's an encouraging number, 5%, because that shows you the due diligence that they're performing, and that shows you how much they're working to keep this as accountable and performing well as possible for the appropriate investors.
Well, it's, if we believe that if our investors make money, they'll invest again, and that's kind of how we make all our decisions.
Exactly. Beautiful. And I think that's awesome. Well, and so go ahead.
Yeah. How about eCoin? I know you guys are backing eCoin.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Tell us about that.
I think eCoin was one of your previous guests. eCoin has created Bitcoin debit cards, which I love because I do a lot of traveling, and I whack my Bitcoins onto a debit card, and I can withdraw them as cash, or I can spend it anywhere that Visa or MasterCard is accepted. So it is helping you drive the utility of your Bitcoins if you got them, where you can use them in a very easy way. So, and they were pushing out quite a lot of cards. They're doing really well. They got a US dollar card, a Euro card, and a pound card. So we put them on the platform, and it was a fairly small fundraise, but we got them, a couple of $100,000 for their seed funding, which we hope will get them to the next stage to be able to scale their customers and get more cards out in the world.
I can't wait until they're available in the U.S. I've got one coming from a friend in Mexico, but he said that he's used it and he's able to put his Bitcoin on there and spend the money like 5 minutes later, which is not, this is not a feature with some of these other cards. You have to wait till the next day or even longer to be able to spend.
Yeah, so
pretty quick.
Where I'm from, I've got a Hong Kong dollar one, and that's a 1 day. You have to plan finances. You put it on, and then a day later you got your money.
Right, wage can.
It's the one I use is ANX in Hong Kong.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, eCoin, definitely seems like a really promising company and financial product, and I think we're definitely supportive of those guys. So that's what I would say is already a success story for Bank to the Future. And tell us too. Obviously, you have ongoing pitches and investment fundraising. What are some of the maybe current popular pitches or most interesting ones that you can think of?
So we just closed today, actually, BitPayza, which raised 1.2 million US dollars, and they're an incredible team. Actually, I got to be careful of my sexism, what I say here, but it's all run by women, and it's one of the most well-run Bitcoin companies I've come across.
Is that the one in Africa?
That's the one. So they're opening up international remittances so that people in Africa can send money in and out, and they're using Bitcoin as the rails in order to open up the markets in an environment where most people are paying up to 12% to make an international payment to and from Africa, where there's only less than 3% credit card penetration.
Right, and even with their dumb phones over there, you've got BitSim that's about to have those little chips that you put behind the battery and would allow you to use a dumb phone for your Bitcoin wallet. Yeah,
so I mean, these are the types of markets that just really interest me. I'm less interested in what. Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we funded some. Actually, one Texas-based company is Factum. Have you heard of Factum?
Oh yeah,
We've had them on the show many times. Yeah.
Cool. Well, they raised I think 1.1 million US with us, and that was for. That's more of a geeky proposition to understand, but essentially everyone's talking about how Bitcoin can be used for other things like land registries in Bangladesh and anywhere where you need transparent data that can't be rigged. Factum's providing the blockchain that enables businesses and governments to use that. And so, we might have a future where voting's on a blockchain and it can't be rigged. I'm not sure if governments want that.
Probably not.
No. So it might be a bit of a hard pitch for Factum to persuade them for that. But in the meantime, if governments and businesses do want to be transparent, they can use Factum and they can, outsource the geeky stuff to them.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Wow, eCoin and Factum. And what was the name of the company run by all women that you just closed on?
BitPayzer.
BitPayzer, that's right. Someone send that to
It's BitPesa, P-E-S-A.
P-E-S-A. Oh, BitPesa. I gotcha. Someone send that to Kathy Reisenwitz so she doesn't think that Bitcoin is bigoted anymore.
Oh.
Anyway, that's really exciting. And let me ask you too. The whole idea of Bank to the Future is pretty awesome. You got an incredible website. You're definitely an excellent spokesman for them. How did you get Richard Branson's endorsement? Is what I want to know.
So Richard Branson wrote a book called Screw Business as Usual. And I wrote the book Bank to the Future, and he was looking to get into banking. And so we put together this little campaign called Screw Banking as Usual. And we tried to get Richard Branson not to create a traditional bank, which he ended up doing. But then, his team contacted us, and then he wrote a press release when we launched. Well, the first time we tried to launch in 2012, or I think it was 2012, but we needed another few years in regulations after that. He did a press release on us in the Daily Telegraph in the UK, and gave us his endorsement, which was very generous of him, and helped us get some credibility in the early days.
Well, that's really awesome. He's definitely an interesting figure. Obviously, a very savvy businessman. A friend of our friend Joby Weeks. Interesting, the small world there.
Yeah, you want to buy a Bitcoin mine, a residual mine? You can have mine.
Call Joby. Well, Simon Dixon, CEO and co-founder of Bank to the Future. Check out BnkToTheFuture.com minus the letter A. We got about 30 seconds left. Simon, any parting thoughts for us?
Yeah, the other thing I'd like to say is we mentioned it earlier. Max Kaiser and myself run a fund called Bitcoin Capital. That's for those that really don't know which companies to invest in, and they'd like to just invest in a fund that does it all for them. That can be invested through the platform. But my final thoughts are every single area of finance is about to
out of the country.
Guys, welcome back to the second half of the Crypto Show here on Logos Radio Network, brought to you as always by Brave New Books and Hill Country Home Improvements. Check out BraveNewBookstore.com and TheBitcoinBookstore.com for over 50 titles on Bitcoin. And don't forget, tonight from 8:30 to 11:30 at Brave New Books is JC TV with JC and his crew doing hip-hop, jazz, rap, comedy, and all sorts of fun stuff. Every other Wednesday at Brave New Books. Keep Wednesday Weird. I keep forgetting. I don't know why I forget this. Keep Wednesday Weird is the name of the event. You can check it out. And the next one won't be till January 20th. And we were just talking with Simon Dixon, the co-founder and CEO of BnkToTheFuture.com. Check it out. It's got the endorsement of famous billionaire and maverick Richard Branson, and we were talking with the co-founder and CEO Simon Dixon. BnkToTheFuture.com, Bank does not have the letter A, so keep that in mind when you're looking for it. For fintech and financial innovation investing, niche investing, not for everyone, but if you are the right person for it, it sounds like a pretty incredible and innovative way to go.